Hi there, all you low whistle players. Here's a question for you. Have you been playing for a few years and gotten past the beginner level and then reached an intermediate level where you've plateaued and you just don't feel like you can get beyond there? And when you listen to a really good player play, do you ask yourself, how do they do that? And say, I'll never be able to play like that. Well, as an intermediate player myself, I know how you feel. So a couple of months ago, I came across a YouTube of a song that I'd heard a long time ago, and this time was a version by a very fine whistle player named Chris McMullen, and the tune was The May Morning Dew. It's a lovely tune, and Chris played it excellently, and it really moved me. And so I said, I'm going to learn how to play that, whatever it takes. And I did. I spent hours going over and over and over various different clips of it on YouTube. I found the written music for it. I drove my girlfriend and our two cats crazy when I was practicing it, and I finally learned it. So what I'd like to do is pass what I learned on to you so that you can learn it and feel like you've moved a little higher on the whistle level, and make it easier for you to learn something like this, to increase your confidence. But first, I'm going to start with the background.
So The May Morning Dew is a song from County Clare, and it's a sad song, essentially. I mean, you could call it a lament even. And it was popularized by a great singer named Dolores Keane. I've got a link to her version of this down below. And her brother Sean also did a very haunting version, and that's also in the link. By the way, anytime I refer to a resource or a singer or somebody that played this tune, it's in the links down below. So the Chieftains also did a version. And then sometime in the early 80s, an Irish piper and whistle player named Davy Spillane came along and took this thing to a whole new level. He did what you just have to call a brilliant version of this. And first he played it on low D whistle. Later he recorded it on an F. And since most of you out there have low Ds and not as many of you have an F like this one here, we're going to do it on the low D whistle today. And so down in the links, I'd really encourage you to listen to Davy's version of it. And then there are a few others too. John McSherry played a great version of it. Chris McMullen, as I mentioned earlier. And then for a really crazy kind of improvised version, see Phil Hardy's take on it. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to refer to some notes here because there are a few details to cover. The first thing is, if you read music, go ahead and click on the link down below for the session where you could print out the music there. You go down to the third version, which is posted by a guy named Mike the Book, who did a great job transcribing this piece. So if you read music, that should really help you a lot. If you don't read music, don't worry about it. You can learn it by ear. Once you get that printed out, there is one correction to make. If you go down to line 5, there is a C there. That needs to be changed to, C sharp. That should be changed to a C natural, and that's pretty important, as you'll see later. So in covering how much we're going to cover of the written music there, we're going to go down to the middle of line 6 there, which represents about 1 minute and 33 seconds on Davy Spillane's version, which is one time through the whole song. So the structure of the song, if you listen to the version of it by the sung version of it, is it has 4 verses and 4 lines in each verse. Most whistle players just play 3 verses, and we're just going to learn 1 today. But each line, as we'll call it, has 3 what I call phrases. So you will end up learning 12 phrases, little bits, and we'll put those all together, and that will be the whole song. So if you just focus on learning 1 at a time, you'll have the whole thing. One more note, if you're not familiar with Irish ornamentation, and I'm not an expert on it myself, but if you're not at all familiar with it, there's a short tutorial by the Whistle Tutor down in the links, and that's a good thing to cover because there are a few ornaments here. And if you're using the written notes, by the way, the written music, note that Mike, the guy who posted it, made a few notations for slides, slides up and slides down with the little marks there. Those are the only ornamentation marks he made. Finally, a few recommendations before we dive into this. When you're learning it, don't worry too much about getting it exactly the way I'm playing it, because I'm not playing it exactly the way it's written or exactly the way Davy Spillane played it. It's pretty close, but focus more on the feel of it than on being really precise. And if you have a few places where you tweak it a little bit, well, that'll be your own style. And one other little tip, I'm not going to repeat every single phrase. I'm just going to play it once through slowly and make a couple of comments. If you want to repeat it yourself and slow it down, you may know this on YouTube videos. You could go down to the settings, to the gear icon, and pick playback speed and slow that way down if you want to. Okay, so next we're going to start with phrase 1. All right, now for the fun part. I'm going to be using my MK Pro here, which has a nice drain pipe sound, which I think really fits this tune. I also have a Burke, and I was lucky enough to get a Copeland Low D way back 20 years ago when you could still get one. But those have a sweeter sound. Whatever Low D you have, though, is fine. But if you have a choice, you might experiment a little bit. So I'm going to use the Piper's grip. We're going to go ahead and do a little bit of a zoom in on my hands so you can see that. And I'm just going to play phrase 1 very slowly, and then I'll make a comment or two at the end. Okay, here we go. Okay, that's just phrase 1. And the one thing to note on that, and this applies to all the other phrases, is don't be shy about holding them out for a nice long period of time, just like Davy Spillane does, because that's what really gives it the haunting tone, I think. I think certain players are tempted, maybe because they're embarrassed to hold a toe too long, to have it be really too short. So if you look at Davy Spillane, for example, and you just count in terms of seconds how long he holds that last E there, it's about 7 seconds. So that's a good long hold. By the way, when I'm playing this, I'm not really trying to count. I figured out that in 3/4 time there, the meter might be about 96 per quarter note, but some of you may be more adept at that than I am, but I'm just doing it by feel. On the longer notes, though, I kind of have in mind how many seconds I want to play them. So in my head, I'm counting, like in that one, I kind of count to about 7. So that's phrase 1. Okay, now phrase 2. And one comment on this is that you notice that on the G, it's held for a couple of seconds before it comes back down. A lot of people play that too short, I think, but it really adds to the effect if you hold it long enough. Okay, phrase 3. Now, on that one, just note that a lot of people played a complete roll on that A. I'm just doing a little bit of a slide with this finger, just to vary it, because the very last time we do this, we will do a roll, so I'm just having a little variation. And then also I'm just doing a little bit of vibrato there on that finger. All right, we've done 3 phrases now, which is essentially one line of the song. We're going to start phrase 4, which is very similar to the first line you'll hear, at least in the beginning of it. All right, that's it. Just notice that I held that E for a good 5 seconds there. Now, phrase 5, we're going to do a couple of slides here. Note that I just held the A for about 4 seconds. So it's a little shorter than the E we just did. Okay, now phrase 6, which is going to be the hardest one we've done so far. And I know I don't do this exactly like Davy Spillane, but It's as close as I could get. So you'll probably have to go through this a couple of times, maybe in slow-mo. All right, here we go. All right, we've done 6 phrases or 2 lines. Now we're going to go to phrase 7, which is similar to phrase 1 and 4, and it's pretty simple. Here we go. Phrase 8. Phrase 9. Now this is a little complicated and long, sort of like phrase 6 was, and I try to take a big, deep breath before I do this one. We've now done 3 lines of the song, and we're ready for the 4th line, and here's where you'll hear that the first 3 sort of are somewhat similar and line themselves up for this, and why it's good to have a nice strong last note in phrase 9, but in phrase 10 here, now we're going to start kind of cutting loose and really putting some feeling into it, which I'll try to do. It's a little hard when I'm just playing little segments here to keep the feeling, but let's see how we do. So here how I try to die out on that C. So there's that C natural that we talked about earlier. And I'm going to play that one more time because this is a really important passage, I think, because it separates the sort of the first 3 lines from this last part, which really has a different tone to my mind. And if you play it right, it just should really get people. So all right, so on that C, just do the best you can to phase out. Some whistles will allow more of that than others, but I think that's a really effective technique there. Now, phrase 11. On this one, we're going to go to an F natural, and Davy Spillane's the only one I've heard do that. All the other players go all the way up to A. You can listen to those versions, see what you think, but to me, in my mind, this F natural it really ties into the C natural that we just did, and it really makes it quail. We're also going to do I guess it's a tap from the low E, right? Low E going right into that high F, and you're going to have to half hole that. So if you're not used to that, you're going to have to play around with that and get just the right place where when you come off of that low E, and you're going to be jumping a whole octave here. So that's a pretty tough one. If you can't muster that, you might just go straight from the other note straight to the F and forget that low E, jump up to the F. But if you can, it's really cool. You might have to just practice that little move over and over, and then you get just to the right place where you're sliding into that F. Okay, here we go. Okay, I didn't quite get it that time, so let's try it again. So here you have to experiment with that a little bit, but that just really creates a cool haunting sound in my mind. Now, finally, phrase 12, where we bring it home and end on the low A. And you notice at the end there, I do a roll. You remember way back the first time we did something similar, I talked about doing a roll at the end. So that is the whole works. Well done. You've made it through 12 sections of this tune. Now it's time to put it all together. Here goes. Well, thanks for hanging in there with me on this instructional video. This is the first video I had ever made for YouTube, by the way. And it's being shot just on an iPhone. But I hope that it has helped you with your confidence and made you feel that, at least on this tune, that you've moved to a little different level. Just one reminder, if there are little passages that you're having trouble with, play them over and over and over again. Practice, practice, practice. It's worth it. So some of you may want to be curious about playing this on an F whistle. I have a Humphrey here, which I managed to pick up used. For the higher end whistles, of course, there's you can get a Burke or an MK Pro. This is D's, but you can get them in F. A Burke MK Pro, of course, Goldie, Carbony. For mid-ranged whistles, I've been very happy with this Humphrey whistle. And you can go to the link below and check out his website. I think there's a bit of delay in getting these, but this is a very nice mid-range whistle. These are going for about $200 right now. And believe it or not, you can get the Carry Optima and Carry Busker whistles on Amazon. The Optima is about $185, so that's a pretty good deal. For less expensive whistles, see Cutie Pie's links. She's got a whole video on affordable whistles. Nathaniel Dowell also does some nice reviews, as does the Whistle Tutor. So let's go out on the same tune here on the F whistle.